Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma. Joining me here by my side to preview the Steelers versus the New York Jets this upcoming Sunday Night Football in prime time. Hey, what, Mr. Brian E. Roach? Brian, what's going on, my friend?
It's a beautiful day. I'm drinking some seltzer water and talking to my friend Joe.
Did we become best friends? You don't do the Step Brothers thing. Never mind.
I don't. I know the stupid reference. I don't like this stupid movie.
And you're stupid for having said that.
Well, I don't like stupid. What's his name? Will Ferrell.
I know that. I know. Me and the lady friend just watched that movie again the other day. Now watch they have like a theatrical or whatever cut that has like additional scenes. And it's a quotable movie. I know you're not into that, but picture something else that you've watched that you consider cult.
I have my share of quotable movies. Yes. I like quotable movies.
Yes.
I just can't sit through Will Ferrell because he makes me want to shoot myself.
I get that. And we've had this conversation, so I won't be a broken record here, although we discussed just off air how much of this is going to be a Jets preview versus talking about Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And I tried to make some notes that might be different from the last episode where we touched upon this and try not to let it dominate all of our time together here. But there's a quote that's been thrown around by a lot of folks here that said, if it isn't, how's the saying go now, Brian? Don't change what's broken, right? Or not broken. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And you and I probably looked at this, maybe a few other people back Sunday post game for the Raiders, and we feel it is broken, but most people
a little broke.
Yeah, but people have this facade of that it's not, and that's kind of it is. It's like a mirage. So let me explain this, okay? And I know it's going to come off weird. And it's like, well, Justin Fields is winning. Well, around this time last year, how many Evians out there were into Matt Canada and the offense and Kenny Pickett as the quarterback or labeling him a bust? The reason I make it easier to be excited or try and say there's a ceiling with Kenny is because, he played like 13 games maybe at that point, if that many at that point. You don't know who this guy is. Justin Fields is approaching 50 games in the NFL that he's played. You kind of know who he is and what he's doing or what he's not doing, okay? So what's broken here? Well, first things first, and this is another, I got a lot of Kenny Pickett comparisons. Actually, let's go into those first because this is kind of interesting, and I got one other that I have to bring up too that's an interesting comparison. So Justin Fields, if we're going to look at Justin Fields and his statistics so far this season. I know Tomlin says stats are for losers. He said, it's been good, but it's not been great. Well, that's the reason I'm showing you this. That's the reason I'm showing you this, because people who say it's not broke or they're saying they're winning. Okay, Kenny Pickett was 4-2 through 6 games last year after having beat the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay, Justin Fields has thrown for 1,106 yards through 6 games. Kenny Pickett through 6 games threw for more, 1,257. Who would have thunk it, right? They both threw for 5 touchdowns, and they've both been sacked or were sacked 16 times. Now, Pickett has, 184 attempts to Fields' 160. So he's thrown 24 more passes, so he has more dropbacks, more opportunities to be sacked too. Whereas Fields and Pickett, he goes on his feet, but we know Justin, the X factor, his legs. That's what people are going to say, right? Okay, fine. But I think we talked about this when we made our predictions ahead of the season. We said, and it's the way I'm looking at this, if the Steelers don't start 3-0 necessarily, and then they have these games where they're close and they lose by 3 apiece, Cowboys, Colts, is there a different opinion? Let's say they started 0-2 with Justin Fields and then crawled back to 4-2. I think the opinion would be a lot different despite the same record, just based on what we saw last year. Now, of course, Pickett threw a few more interceptions. He had 4. Fields has had some near close calls that have not gone on the stat sheet. He's also had those same close calls with fumbles where Kenny didn't have 6 fumbles, 1 of those lost.
Look, there's there's the law of recency, right? Meaning in your scenario, if they start 0-2 and then manage to get to 4-2 by winning the last 4 games, I think that everybody's up Justin Fields' butt, to be honest with you, because it's the law of recency, right? The most recent thing. And that comes into play with what we're talking about, right? The last game was a victory. So law of recency says we just won. Hey, Justin Fields is fine. Don't make any changes. We won. But, you have to look at the season as a whole. And even though they're winning games, it has been predicated on the defense performing at a level that is not sustainable, which is what we talked about the other day, right? And, it's time at this point to see whether Russell Wilson provides a different kind of dynamic in that offense versus Justin Fields. Justin Fields very well may be a more long-term fit for this offense. It's not that he's played poorly. He's showed a lot of good things, but what he has also showed is that he needs to develop more. And perhaps, a year playing with Russ, maybe following him for a little while, helps him in that development. I just think people are just stuck on this idea of, well, we won, so you can't sit him. And I'm more on the idea of, man, that game was a hair's breadth of going the other way, and it's time to see what else we've got.
Yes, sir. Is it broken? First half points by the Steelers, 9 against the Falcons, 10 against the Broncos, 7 against the Chargers, 3 apiece against the Colts and Cowboys, and 12 against the Raiders, which was TJ punching the ball out down by the goal line and them knocking it in, which still took 6 plays to get the extra 6 points. Did not convert on the 2-point conversion. It's 44 points in the first half to 80 second half points. Sometimes Colts let off the gas maybe a little bit defensively, let the Steelers stay in the game, and you've got some slow starts from Fields. Now, let me throw out this right here. And you said fit for offense, but I want to bring up another quarterback in the National Football League because people love to compare. Patrick Mahomes, for example, has like 6 interceptions, right? And I'm just kind of like, everybody's throwing together, well, Justin Fields has 5 rushing touchdowns, but how many of those are by design? And how many of those are by, happy accidents, as Bob Ross would say? Like, you have a happy accident where Fields doesn't make the read, but the play breaks down in such a way that he's able to escape with his feet, and it doesn't become a negative. Great. And I think that's what people are afraid of, that could be a negative with Russell Wilson. Yeah, cautiously optimistic here, too. It could be. He's 35. We don't know how he's running around, and he's had a bad calf, right? But here's an NFL quarterback that's thrown for over 1,000 yards and has 5 touchdowns. He has a completion percentage of 61.3%, nearly 200 pass attempts. His yards per attempt, they're kind of down this year, 5.1. And let me see here. I don't believe that he's in the Fumblerooski category. Oh, yeah, he is. He's in the same Fumblerooski category. That's why I selected him. 5 fumbles so far this season. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, that doesn't sound very good, does it? Does that sound like winning football to you? It's in the same category, right, as Justin Fields. And I'm talking, of course, about the 1-5 Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson. High-priced quarterback, got traded for. Nobody's sitting there and saying, they're talking about whether they could bench this guy and whether Jimmy Haslam, the owner, has them handcuffed. Well, at least the Steelers don't have these handcuffs. You got 2 guys that are under a contract for a year. You don't even know if they'll be here next year. Watson's still owed, I think $120+ million or something the next 2 seasons after this, the way his contract's been restructured. And they got rid of his best player probably in Amari Cooper, which was a trade. So that's where I sit here. And it's like, on one hand, the team's not winning, and the guy he got sacked like 31 times. That's the biggest thing with Watson. Really talk about holding on to the ball too long, right? And so Fields' let's say his floor is higher than it has been maybe the previous 3 seasons. But it doesn't look like the ceiling is very much higher than that floor. There's just nothing. We were excited. We saw what he did with the Chargers. It looked like it was starting to come together. And then the Colts, he threw for over 300 yards, got him back in the game. near win, if there isn't like that bad snap, fumble, whatever, everything that happens in that game, even out of field goal range, perhaps they walk away with that with a victory. And of course, placement in the schedule. Imagine they win that game and then lose the last two. People are probably asking for Wilson instead of Fields, because Fields has completed 55.6 and 58.3% of his passes the last two games, 131 and 145 yards. He hasn't even combined over the last 8 quarters of football for over 300 yards. That's why we're starting to think this could be a little broken, because the Colts, Cowboys, and Raiders defenses, not that good. Now you're going to start getting into, you've got 2 New York teams with decent defenses, then a bye week, and then the division play starts up.
Yep. I don't think, as I said, it's not that it's the broken beyond repair, right? But it is not, the offensive production is not at a caliber that, you can just look at your record and say, we're playing winning football. Because it's really not about the offense. It's all predicated by the defense. And if the defense has a bad game, the offense can't save them. So, you need to be able to say, what would this look like if we had a exponentially, pick the exponent, a twice as good offense? What if we had an offense that was just slightly better? Maybe Russ gives you that. Maybe he doesn't. I think it's worth a game to find out. You've got Justin there anyway, right? If Russ stinks the joint out in the first half, fine. Justin plays in the second.
You'd think they would make a switch within this same
If he's
game.
really bad, yes.
Okay. Really bad, I could probably see it.
Mediocre, if he's no better than Justin Fields, then no, they'll let him play the whole game.
That's exactly the point is, what I'm saying is, if it's 2 or 3 Chris Boswell field goals at halftime and it's still close to Jets and Aaron Rodgers, let's say it's 10-9 or something at halftime, I don't think anything's getting changed if they only have 100 yards of offense or something like that. Tomlin, this isn't Ben Roethlisberger anymore. Like before, we would see him be a little more aggressive offensively. Now he's more aggressive towards the defensive side of the ball. It's like, hey, I'll just punt it away and dare them to go 90 yards on my defense. And then you hope to God the defense hasn't been gassed with a bunch of 3 and outs. That's the one thing Fields does give you. It's a little different. And I really wanted to preface this because there's been reels, there's been shorts, there's been all these other things, the other shows we talked about. There's been my tweets that are out there and people want to just come at you. And I'm not trying to like trounce on Justin Fields, but much like the other guys that have been through, like I said, guys almost had 50 some games of experience in the NFL. He's in his 4th year. It was all the same stuff I used to say about Mitch Trubisky, stuff I used to say about another guy too, Marcus Mariota. And the reason I want to bring up Marcus Mariota is this. Do you think that the offenses that Arthur Smith had to run in Atlanta are the offenses that he wanted to run based on the quarterbacks he had? Marcus Mariota, Taylor Heineke, Desmond Ridder. Hell no. And obviously, he's no longer there as a head coach, especially. Yeah. Maybe he's not suited to be a head coach. We see some guys, they get called up, their coordinators, their head coach. We'll be talking about one that's on the Jets staff here shortly. Nathaniel Hackett in the same category. Just doesn't cut from that same cloth to go from the coordinator spot to be a leader. And I just don't think that's where they want the Arthur Smith offense to be. Where was Fields' best game? Probably. I'd say the Chargers game. Stood in the pocket. Completed passes, let things slow down, he took what was there for him.
His best period of time was the second half of the Colts game.
Yeah,
I'll take that the best he's looked. But the best overall game might be the Chargers game.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Brian. When you look at, you don't know when he takes off with his feet if he's not making the reads that are there, if he's not taking the plays that are there, or if things are just so broken with the offensive line. And I think that people are worried, obviously so. You got Ryan McCollum's going to be playing as a starting center. It's yet another different lineup and yet another new dude in the lineup in week 7. And his offensive line cannot catch a break. But I don't think this is the offense that Arthur Smith necessarily wants to run. And when you know that Justin Fields is just going to run and he's not completing those deep passes, Connor Hayward, does Russell Wilson make that pass to Connor Hayward as a completion? And now you have deep threat, you got to worry. Connor Hayward could be catching a ball, out of this huddle. That's the kind of thing that's there. There's people that are talking about like locker room morale. And it's when those plays when Darnell Washington's like, yo, what the hell? You just overthrew me, dude. I'm like 7 feet tall. I think the locker room morale, they're talking about it and they're like, you're going to lose the locker room if you play Fields. I don't think so. I think the things that we've been talking about, Arthur Smith being no, he's not a great OC or whatever. I think his play calls, I really haven't questioned, but maybe the trick play that got snuffed out, right? Genius if it works, idiot if it doesn't. I don't have a problem with the play calls, the offense in general, but they've had to kind of tailor it, work with Fields, and it's been all Fields with his feet. If it's all Fields with his feet, why would the defensive coordinator on the other side of the ball? Why he's not going to put anybody in the back because he's not going to throw it over the top of your defense and complete any big passes. And the one he did complete was George Pickens late in the game, and George Pickens makes a diving catch for it. We're talking about George Pickens' eye black instead, maybe because the quarterback isn't making the plays.
So I'm going to give Justin the benefit of the doubt on especially some of the long balls. I think he can be accurate, but in most cases, he's being chased, right? It's not as easy for him to stop, set his feet, and make a good throw. It falls along the same pattern we've been talking about. If his first read is there and the play happens quickly, he's pretty good. It's when it's not. I think Russ can potentially be better, but we don't know. I don't know. We've seen how much did we see of Russell Wilson even in the preseason? Almost nothing.
Doesn't that beg the argument to put him in the C against the two New York teams before a bye week? Yeah.
Well, at least one of them. At least against one of them. Like I would play Russell Wilson this week against the Jets. I would, for no better reason than to see what Russ can do, right? If Russ lights it up against a solid Jets defense, right? Well, that's your answer. If all of a sudden the offense starts to click, if the offense is putting along the same way they did with Justin, it's not them. Or it's both of them.
And then it's something else, or it's offensive. Yeah. I mean, it's just the fingers of blame that go around. And I'm not necessarily trying to blame Fields, but at some point you got to be able to throw for 250 to 300 yards if necessary, and maybe get more than just one touchdown pass. I mean, the guy only has like 6 games in his career where he's thrown for 3 or more in a game when it comes to touchdown passes. He's been just a runner. And I think some of that sometimes isn't by design. The defense doesn't necessarily plan or have somebody back there. And when they are by design and it works, it isn't always good, because that Cowboys game, they weren't giving that up. Even with their backup guys, even with their edge guys out, they were containing it, and they weren't getting anywhere with the run game, period. This offense is predicated on doing some play action, run pass option type stuff, and it all starts with the run game, and then you go from there. You want Najee Harris to be that Derrick Henry from that Arthur Smith offense the way it was. You saw Tannehill was able to Tannehill isn't even in the NFL right now, and he looked like a superstar. He got that team damn near to the Super Bowl. I mean, they made a deep playoff run. So those are the kind of things that I'm looking for. When do you correct those? When do you have time to do it? Not when you're playing the Eagles and Chiefs. So this is the time. I do think Tomlin was asked, was Russell healthy enough to play like last week? But again, Tomlin's daring the Raiders with all of these backups, everybody else in, come beat my guys, come beat this defense. Justin is doing good, not great, doing good enough that he's not going to sink the ship. We're not going to shoot ourselves in the foot, and we're going to be able to win. And Russ gets to rest and knock off some rust for one more week. Probably true, maybe the last 2 weeks, really. He might have been almost there. I know they didn't start him up necessarily, but Tomlin's had enough experience with this. How many times was Ben hurt? And I mean, Ben's a gladiator, he's going to play and blah, blah, blah. Russell Wilson isn't the same body frame or type or anything of a Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, the risk you take is Russ has been hurt, right? Even if he's fully healthy, the risk you take playing him is, does he get killed? I mean, not literally killed, of course, but but behind it, what is now a patchwork offensive line. I don't think there's any other way to state that, right? Missing James Daniels, missing the center. It's a patchwork offensive line. I think you do have to question that. And maybe Justin is a little better at being elusive, but not always, right? We've seen that. Not always at all.
Still 16 sacks on the it's not the
Wait, where's the sign? Put up the Maths with Brian sign.
Okay, Maths with Brian. I got to find it. It's been Maths with Joe. Oh, it was Maths with Joe, Maths with. There we go. Got it.
So we have 6 games, right?
Yes.
So far, and he has 16 sacks, did you say?
Yes.
So what's that? That's like 4 sacks a game?
No, that's that would
3?
be 4. That'd be 4. It's not.
Oh, that'd be 24. It's not even 3. It's only 2 and 3/4.
Yeah, like I said, it's not.
That's not that bad.
It's not crazy terrible, but that was the whole point of bringing it up the same way as bringing up, Kenny Pickett, for example, and just not getting away. Now, like I said, Deshaun Watson, where's he at? Hold on a second. I'm going to pull it back
31.
up. Did I say, I know I said 31, but it's 31. 31 sacks, dude.
31 in 6 games. That's like over 5 a game. That's like, people are like, we can't wait to play the Browns. TJ's like, I could set the record in just those 2 games.
Oh man, and I tell you, TJ's gonna get there. Aiden Hutchinson, unfortunately, out now for the year. He was the league leader in sacks with 7.5, but yeah, TJ doing TJ things. You can't always rely on that, and you're lucky
until
that
they get somebody on the other side. They're in trouble. He's not going to have the same kind of sack production until Alex or Nick get back.
Okay, so a couple other things that have leaked out here. One is draft compensation of the Chicago Bears increases from like a 6th round pick to a 4th round pick if Fields plays over half of the games. Is it a business decision? Brian Hoyer was on XM radio with Solomon Wilcots, I believe, and they just said absolutely not. It's not something that Mike Tomlin would do. Mike Tomlin's just interested in winning.
Yeah, but I agree with that.
I agree with that part of it, but I'm not going to say necessarily that these guys haven't kept tabs on certain snap counts in the past. I don't know about Omar Khan and how he does business versus Kevin Colbert, but you could certainly say that either somebody wasn't good enough and they got hornswoggled, like a Brandon Boykin back in the day, or they were limiting someone's reps intentionally as to not have to pony up a higher draft pick. But just something that has to be addressed because people are talking about it. Another thing that people are talking about too is if Wilson does play, does Fields play too? Does he get does he get a series, or does he get specific scenarios or plays?
Plays.
Yeah. Will it be like Taysom Hill though? Well, you have them both on the field.
That'd be pretty weird and scary, but you never know.
I mean,
wouldn't you like to see Russ throw a pass to Justin Fields?
Yeah, throw it back, and then you could have forward.
No, don't throw it back. Throw it forward.
Throw it forward. I don't want to see him. Remember when Tom Brady tried to catch a pass? I think Fields is uberly more.
It's a little bit more athletic than Tom Brady.
just a smidge. But yeah, those are the comps that are out there for all of that stuff. It's basically what we're trying to say is that what we see, it doesn't appear broken to our eye because we just see the final product of what transpires. Fields runs in for a touchdown. Yay, touchdown. And you're like, Pat Freiermuth was wide open over there in the corner, and that's where the ball was supposed to go, and he's not seeing it. Okay, that happened one play. Mulligan. We'll give the young guy this. This is like his 2nd game in this system. He's still learning this stuff. He was supposed to be the backup. And that's another important point to bring up as well here in a second. But now it's happened 4, 5, 6, 7 times, let's say. Not something that could be observed with our just naked eye watching on television. You could see it sometimes in the stands. There may be a number of reasons. Maybe it gets fleshed out. Maybe he's just holding on to the ball too long, which he's definitely,
definitely does. But so does Russ. So
yeah, we know Russ is going to do that too. Well, you wonder how much too when you get to Russell Wilson, and people say, well, he hasn't done anything in a few years. He hasn't played since this, that, or the other thing. Russell Wilson was named the starter. And I know he's also named a team captain. People say, oh, well, that's not important or whatever. But this is again with the locker room morale. This is the guy that was named captain. I know Mitch Trubisky lost his job and was still out there for coin tosses and was then the backup behind Kenny Pickett as a captain. So it happens. But Russ was named the starter. and had the complication week 1 where they did the flip to Fields like on Thursday, and then I think Wilson got hurt on Thursday, and then Friday's practice, which is almost like a walkthrough, immediately had to change the game plan. And then it's like, when's this guy going to be fully healthy? Well, he's not ready for this one. And that's why Tomlin's really been dragging his feet. He was the last team in the NFL to name a starter to begin with. Was it really this close? Were they not sure about Wilson's health? There's a bunch of question marks that are there, but now the question marks are, where's Wilson's floor as opposed to Fields' floor? Is he like all washed up? Well, number one, Nathaniel Hackett was his head coach when Denver spent all this in trade capital and new deal and contract and new owners, and they're going to, turn this whole franchise around. They got the shiny offensive coordinator, brought him in, and this guy couldn't even coach himself out of a wet paper bag. He was gone before the first season was even done. So then Wilson goes to Sean Payton, and we're talking about square peg for a round hole type with what Sean Payton wants to do with his offense. Russell Wilson is not a Drew Brees, and I hear quite a bit. We know there was a little friction there, but that friction with Sean Payton seems to be a thing. Like, certain people complain about a Bill Belichick or whatever. Payton wants it a certain way, and that's the only way it's going to be. They had me kind of guessing here as to what might happen with Fields. Did we just kind of see just a little sampling here or there of him forcing stuff with either of these two systems, which, by the way, Nathaniel Hackett, offensive coordinator of the New York Jets, had his play calling duties removed after they fired Robert Saleh the week before as their head coach. So he's not even the play caller. He's the offensive coordinator, not even the play caller. I think the quarterback's coach took over as the play caller, defensive coordinator, now the head coach. They've got their own housekeeping to do. So you go back to Russell Wilson, and you're wondering, did he just have like a bad streak over the last 2 years? Even over the last 4, this is his 5th different offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith is, in the last 5 seasons. So even back with the Seahawks, where there were complaints, Pete Carroll maybe at the end of his line as a legendary head coach, the offensive coordinators that were cycling in and out of there. Can we say that Russell Wilson's lack of production or performance over the last few years is necessarily on Russell Wilson, or maybe the coaches and systems that he's been in maybe forcing him in a different direction to not play Russell Wilson like?
It really depends on what your philosophy is, right? How much do you think coaching matters? How much do you think it is the offensive coordinator versus the player is just not good? How many great quarterbacks suddenly became great after they played for a crappy offensive coordinator for the first 4 years? How many great quarterbacks suddenly became stinky after they got a offensive coordinator? I think the sampling is not that huge. We oftentimes blame that. It is not good for an athlete to consistently being in a different system by a different coordinator with different play calls. It becomes confusing, right? Because you don't have consistency. We talk about consistency with the offensive line, consistency with play calling, consistency with just the system is also a good thing. So, it's probably, I guess where I'm going is it's probably a combination of things, right? Russ is getting older. He's not the same Russ who won a Super Bowl, right? But he's probably also been hampered by the fact that he has had very inconsistent structures around him for quite a while.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, in the same vein of the don't change, or is it broken? Don't fix it if it isn't broken. We've really seen Fields do much at the line of scrimmage. Is he going to make the same, will Russ notice that they need a certain protection to get a certain look? Audibles, just something different where he knows to get rid of the ball quicker, or will he recognize different things just based on his experience level? That's what I'm kind of wondering. Remember, Matt Canada, we have to bring this name up. This is like number 2 to that number 14 that lost Super Bowl 30, Brian. He who shall not be named.
I won't. Well, yeah. He didn't cost us anything other than wasted time and angst. But...
he wasted Ben's last years, and he's wasting Cam and TJ's and Minka's and everybody else too. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but the thing was, did Kenny Pickett have audibles or have the ability? Do you think that Justin Fields has been handcuffed at all? I don't feel that way. I feel like he's taken some shots downfield if he feels he sees it. I feel like that they maybe in the first game against the Falcons, maybe they were a little more conservative. But I don't necessarily buy that it was 100%. And even then, you got to remember, and this goes both ways. If George Pickens is going to get called for a ticky-tack offensive pass interference call, there's probably more stats to pad Justin Fields and make him look a little better too. So I'm going to pick him up a little bit and say that not all of it's on, necessarily on him there. But I don't think the coaches are necessarily just handcuffing him. It's like the middle of the field is a no man's land again. They say nobody's running there, and it's like that's absolutely not true at all. He runs off to one side or the other and cuts the field in half. You're not going to come back across your body or anything like that. And the one time he did go in the middle of the field, he's lucky that somebody hit him late and the referees threw the little hanky, and it was called a roughing the passer.
Yeah, I don't think, like I said, I don't think Justin sees the field as well as potentially Russ will. It's just a matter of experience. Quarterbacks will get better and can get better over time. Especially with how they view a defense, how they see a defense, how they see what the defense is doing in front of them. Remember, he's also new to this team and new to most of the teams he's facing. He's not facing the NFC North and most of the NFC teams as much as he did, obviously, in his first set of years. So it's just a lot of difference, right? There's a lot of fluctuation here. I mean, we could probably make the same arguments for Justin Fields that we just tried to make for Russell Wilson, right? Constant change, no consistency, no stability. I think it's just very clear when you watch him that he is not always picking up on things. He's not seeing when protections need to be shifted, right? Because remember, you essentially had a rookie signing protections for the offensive line, and part of the quarterback's job is to change that and adjust that if, in fact, those protections need to be moved. And ideally, you'd want him to see that. I don't know that he is. I don't think he's handcuffed. To come back to that point, I don't think they've got him going, look, you can't make audibles, just run the damn plays we call. I don't think that's the case. It doesn't feel like that's the case, but I do think that he has a problem processing to a certain extent.
Yeah, that slow processing there is part of the reason I think we are saying you got to go with Russell Wilson here. You have a Jets team that's very good against the pass. They're second in the league right now. And one of the reasons for that, let me make sure I've got that correct. Second in the defensively and 17th against the run. They are -1 in the takeaway department, where the Steelers are +7. The Steelers are 5th in the league. The Jets are in the middle there. And they've only allowed 18 points a game on average defensively, which is 7th in the league. Steelers are 14.3, second in the league. So believe it or not, the Steelers are actually pretty decent against the pass and run too, 13th and 4th, whereas the Jets are 2nd and 17th. So they're kind of in the middle against the run. That's probably the weakness when you're looking at the offense. It's still going to primarily be run the football. That's what I think Arthur Smith wants to do. He's going to load up some bigs, and you're going to hand off the ball to Najee and now maybe a healthy Jaylen Warren and get them 25 to 30 carries. But if you need that quarterback to throw the ball 35, 40, 45 times, do you feel confident enough that Justin Fields would be able to do that mistake-free and be able to lead a team back to victory? I think that's where the distinction really is. And I want to say, I'm going to pull this up one more time, I don't think Fields is anywhere in that territory of passing the ball. His success has come, against the Raiders, 24 pass attempts. Against the Cowboys, 27. Of course, 300 yards passing when he had 34 pass attempts against the Colts. They were trailing. He had 32 against the Chargers for 245. The first two games, 23 and 20 pass attempts. Those are very minimal numbers. So, I mean, it's hard to get yourself up to like 300 some yards, but is that a trust factor, or is that by design of this offense? And do you feel it's going to be better with Russell Wilson if you only have him throwing the ball 20 times? Russell Wilson is not known to be a mistake-prone quarterback. He's not known to throw a lot of interceptions. He's not known to be a guy that doesn't protect the football going down and fumbling. I don't know that he'll have any. I don't know if he would have these snap exchange issues, et cetera, et cetera. Is he going to take sacks? Yeah, he takes oodles of them usually. Probably by trying to extend plays too. That pads his numbers over the years. He's a gunslinger type of quarterback, but he's not going to escape the way that Ben Roethlisberger did. He's not going to escape the same way that Justin Fields has been mostly capable of doing. So when you come back around to it and you've got to trust one guy to hurl the ball and sling it around the field, I think you have to see what Wilson offers.
I mean, I think that's the bottom line, and we're both in agreement. It's not that you need to make a permanent change. It's not that but you need to know what you have. You just need to know whether Russell Wilson is going to make this offense run better than Justin Fields did. If that experiment doesn't play out, then you know where you're at and you know what you've got moving forward. They can't get out of this season unless Justin Fields suddenly the light turned on, right? And he starts balling out like an all-pro, or even just slightly elevates his game and is starting to throw for consistently 250 yards and having a higher percentage and seeing the open guys and processing a little better than he has been doing, even if it's just an incremental, build, then maybe you know where you're going. But until you see both of them, right now you kind of feel like, I know what we have in Justin Fields. We've got a guy who could operate as a good backup, maybe could get us a win, but is not going to make this offense purr like a oiled machine. We need to know if Russell Wilson is going to be that guy, because at the end of the year, we're going to have to pay somebody.
Yeah, or they're not going to be, maybe won't be in a position to draft one. And that's another thing for the locker room too. Russell Wilson was named starter. He was named the starter. He got hurt. A lot of people are like, hey, how does this reflect on Mike Tomlin if he pulls Fields and they're being successful and they go to Wilson? Well, how does it reflect on Mike Tomlin if a player in the locker room is injured and now thinks, well, I'm hurt and I can lose my job? I don't have any kind of job security necessarily. Yeah. Tomlin has never been the guy to let somebody just slide right in and take the job right away without letting that injured player return to health and come back and have an opportunity, if not just take their job back fully, if they're capable of it. It depends on who the backup is or was. And I think that reflects on the locker room too, because now what do you do with somebody that's like, they're not 100%, but now they feel the need that they got to go out there and gut it and actually hurt your team because they're afraid of losing their spot, So I think that's part of the locker room morale too. I know it's been all quarterback, and going forward, this and that. But there is a game against the Jets on Sunday night, and we covered a little bit of maybe what could go on offensively. Will George Pickens be more highlighted, or what's going to go on? It's going to be interesting to watch. 50th anniversary of Super Bowl IX. Wearing the block number jerseys, so it's going to be a little bit of a special atmosphere in Acrisure. Going to be going to where the Steelers are 1-1 at home right now. They're 4-2 against the spread, which currently has the New York Jets as a 2-point favorite. They're getting -2. Let's see if the over-under moved. It was at 38. It is at 38. They're not expecting a whole lot of points in this game. Quite frankly, the Jets haven't been all that great. They come into Pittsburgh 2-4. They were the darling. Everybody, they were the off-season. This is the team of destiny. And you've had Hassan Reddick hold out and change his agents and everything else. And the owner, Woody Johnson, fires Robert Saleh the week before. So they have Jeff Ulbrich, a defensive coordinator, and he goes out there for his first game, and they lay an egg. They compete with the Buffalo Bills, but it's 23-20 ultimately. They've lost to the 49ers, the Broncos in a 10-9 game with rain, and the Minnesota Vikings 23-17. So defensively, they've still been strong with the exception of the 49ers laid 32 points on them to start the season. But their offense, 19, 24, 24, 9, 17, 20 behind Aaron Rodgers. We're not sure this is the Aaron Rodgers of old.
Of course it's not.
Yeah, 1,387 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I think 3 in the London game a few weeks ago against the Vikings. He's been sacked 16 times as well. And they're just
what's the situation? Is Devontae going to play?
So Davante Adams apparently went and had his physical after the trade from the Raiders. And I know there's lots of Yinzers that are out there. There's the clickbait artists that are out there. The Steelers missed out on Davante Adams. Who's to say that this guy even wanted to play in Pittsburgh? He wants to go, not where they don't know who the quarterback is right now. Does he want to play with Justin Fields? Does he want to play with maybe Russell Wilson? Or is he going to go play with the guy that helped him earn these big paychecks with Aaron Rodgers and continue to? Now, his money deal, the Raiders aren't eating any of it. I don't even see how he could be in New York after this season or wherever he would have ended up to begin with. But just the very thought that the Steelers were going to win this so-called sweepstakes was more than likely preposterous. And the Jets got super desperate now after losing this game. Now, it's as though, Jesus or somebody went out there and healed this man. Hey, oh my God, he can walk. It's like, you see like the evangelist type things and stuff in the movies. And it's like, he could see, he could walk. It's a miracle. And that's the way I think it looks right now. I think he was a full participant in practice. Let me pull up I had the injury report here. Yeah, Davante Adams, full practice. That hamstring. Hallelujah, Brian.
Magically fixed.
We have witnessed a miracle.
It is a miracle.
2 of the corners, though, show up on the Wednesday practice report for the Jets as it did not practice. Michael Carter, the nickel corner with a back. DJ Reed, opposite of Sauce Gardner, with a groin injury. Aaron Rodgers with an ankle, which he said he's been dealing with. So talk about mobility issues for quarterbacks. Mike Williams was non-injury personal, did not practice. And then you had a bunch of guys limited, including Tyler Conklin, Will McDonald, who's one hell of a force defensively. Like the guys on their defensive front are just, they're beasts. Quinnen Williams and so forth.
Yeah.
Remember CJ Mosley playing inside linebacker, formerly of the Ravens. Morgan Moses has been kind of in and out of these lineups. Both their tackles with Tyron Smith, they're limited. One with a knee. The other one was just veteran rest with Tyron Smith. But they've had their issues there, particularly with Moses. He's been beat up. And Chaz Surratt, linebacker, with the heel, limited. The Steelers, on the other hand, Najee Harris showed up on the DMP with ribs. DeMonte Casey still nursing an ankle. Nick Herbig still nursing the hamstring. Zach Frazier with the ankle, though Tomlin is pretty much said he's going to be out this week, but is not on IR week to week. And boy, do they need him out there. Does look like Alex Highsmith's back out there, limited. I'm going to say, depending on the next 2 days go, if he doesn't have any setbacks, I think we're expecting him to be back. Isaac Seumalo got a little bit of rest because he's still trying to get back to 100%, even though he's playing. Michael Pruitt, full practice. Cordero Patterson, a DMP with ankle. 3 guys resting, non-injury related, including TJ Watt, Larry Ogunjobi, and Cameron Hayward. So that's a laundry list there. But to answer your question, it sounds like Davante Adams, primetime, New York market, new team, Aaron Rodgers, all these things, TV ratings, big lights, big city, bright lights, spotlight, highlight, you name it. I think he's probably going to go out there. That causes more problems, not because of him. I think he'll be limited, especially if he's been dealing with the hamstring, new offense. He's just showed up. But for the plays he's out there, you have to respect him. And you have another guy who hasn't been doing hot. That's another George Pickens type, maybe even better caliber of a player that's young, maybe a little raw, rough around the edges and demanding the football, and Garrett Wilson, that this may now open things up for.
Yeah, I'm assuming, Joey will probably follow Garrett Wilson. Of the two, he's the younger, probably the more explosive receiver right now. But Aaron Rodgers knows Davante Adams, right? They have a rapport. I'm a little concerned with those two guys being there in the same place. That's going to be a tough task, especially if our off defensive front cannot get pressure on Aaron Rodgers.
And they brought him in because Mike Williams, formerly of the Chargers, who's, coming off of injuries and seems to always be bitten with the injuries, They've got a number of dudes. There's still Alan Lazard here, who has a lot of familiarity with Aaron Rodgers. Will he have the time? If you get Highsmith out there and they can bring some pressure, contain the run. Breece Hall, definitely a capable back, 83 carries for 310 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's also utilized in the pass game. He has 26 catches for 204. Wilson does lead the team, though, 41 for 399, 3 touchdowns. Lazard has 5 touchdowns, however, on only 26 receptions, 354 yards. He's had some of the bigger plays, including a 52-yard long. But I do see a lot of similarities with some of the teams that the Jets have already played. And I think that just strong defense, it's probably going to rattle Rodgers. I don't know that Rodgers has still got it all right there. And I think the coaching turmoil or mess that they have there, they got to get it together quickly, hit the road, and come to Pittsburgh after a Monday night game. That's tough. That's tough sledding for any team. It's going to be just a one day shorter of a week, but you got to come and play in prime time. Get somebody else on the moving train, as Tomlin likes to say, but this way it's Devontae Adams and the Jets train. I don't know how to view this if it was like a couple weeks later, but I like how Tomlin said in his presser, he goes, we were preparing for Devontae last week. So the Steelers already got their homework and stuff kind of put in on what they want to do to limit him from being an impact player in the game, at least.
Yeah, I mean, they'll do what they can. And as we've said in the past, if the front can get pressure, then the back can hold up. If the front can't get pressure, there's going to be potential problems. You cannot cover indefinitely, right? Guys are going to break free if the quarterback has enough time. So they're going to have to find a way to get pressure. If Highsmith is there, is he going to be 100%? Probably not. So you got to figure out a way to get pressure, whether that means blitzing, which is not generally a good idea against Aaron Rodgers, or just some other creative way to get some pressure. You're going to have to. The offense is probably going to have to score 20-something points to win this game.
I'm with you, Brian. I mean, that's pretty much Aaron Rodgers should always kind of worry you. He's Aaron Rodgers. He's a guy that, I don't know, I hate saying Hall of Fame with just one ring, but he's put up gobs of numbers over the years. I think the thing that really he can hang his hat on with a career, the guy is not known to throw passes to the other team. It just doesn't happen. He is not an interception and mistake type of quarterback that's pretty much cemented his legacy. So when you do see him make those mistakes, it's very uncharacteristic.
I mean, we've been calling him Mr. Overrated for years, or at least I have, because I think he plays great in the regular season and then he doesn't win anything. So,
yep, Steelers offensive line. Hopefully they don't have their hands full too much. Now it's McCollum, McCormick, and Seumalo, Dan Moore Jr. and Broderick Jones, and you got Will McDonald, who is now the active sacks leader with 7, because Hutchinson had 7.5. You're staring down that barrel there. Quentin Williams. You got Solomon Thomas in that rotation too. There's even you go some real old hat stuff here with some of the edge rushers. Tack McKinley's a backup. I was like, man, I remember Tack McKinley he was supposed to be a big deal coming out of college. I think special teams is going to be a little intriguing with the New York Jets in particular. Greg Zuerlein, the guy's been around. He has missed 4 field goal attempts thus far this season. I'm going to see what the distances were on them because it's kind of important with Acrisure. Now, it's supposed to probably be, I think it's going to be a little crisp there, maybe in the mid 40s, mid to high 40s, maybe low 50s for the weather as the game progresses. So let's see. Zuerlein, extra points aren't a problem. But his field goal attempts and misses, he's missed one from 30. And then his other attempts, I don't know why it's not on here. I can't take this as 100% reliable. But what did I say just a moment ago? That he was sitting at 8 of 12 on the season. Yeah. So, here we go. Field goal attempts and field goals made. So he's missed 1 from the 30 to 39 range, missed 1 from 40 to 49 range. So, yeah, field goal attempts, 12. Field goals made, 8. His long for the season, 37-year-old kicker. How about this, Brian? 40-yarder. the further this dude's kicked it this year.
That's not that long.
No. And when you're maybe up against the Steelers defense, that, you're going to try and move them however many yards to get a guy in the field goal position. You got to try and make a 47-yarder on the not so open end, but scoreboard end in Pittsburgh. Yeah, that could definitely play into this. So I guess we'll see. That's kind of an interesting thing I didn't really look at into this. He had missed 7 field goals, but most of them were from 50-plus if you go back 2 seasons. So he's been with the Jets for 3 years after some stints with the Rams and the Cowboys. So that'll do it, I think, for us, my friend. Just hopefully it's not a Chris Boswell only type of field goal day. We didn't really talk about him with the Raiders. He scored 12 points. He had 4 field goals. He had the first 2 on the board, and those were long. I think he had a 52 and then a 47-yarder. We didn't even discuss him in the last game because we're so fixated on the Wilson and Fields stuff. So
I'll pull out some Tomlinism. It's like it's not a surprise. It's expected, but it's not unappreciated.
That's pretty perfect. Oh my goodness. And I forgot some of the stuff he comes back with, where he's just saying that's internal or that's only going to be discussed here or whatever. But the stats are for losers. I was like, man, come on, man. Sometimes it's like, sometimes
I've said the same thing.
Yeah. The stats are just,
I've said the same thing. I didn't say they're for losers. I just said I don't like stats. I need more than stats.
Did you read into that more like I did? It was about like the Justin Fields not turning the ball over or playing well. And he said the stats are for losers. Like I said, that cuts both ways because there's plays that were taken off that would make him look a lot better. There's also plays that were taken off that would make him look worse.
Make him look a lot worse.
Again, I'm not trying to dump all on him. It's just I feel when you look at the floor of the 2 quarterbacks, Russell's floor might just be a little bit higher. We don't know if Fields is ever going to reach that kind of ceiling. It's year 4. You never know when the light bulb goes off for these guys. We talked about it last show. Darnold and Mayfield and I don't know, man. And Joe Flacco, and you talk about a team, the Colts, they're going to trot Anthony Richardson back out there because they spent a pick on him, and Flacco's, 39 now, and he's not necessarily the future. So, man, I'll tell you, some of these are multi-million-dollar decisions that Shane Steichen could be without a job before you know it. You know what I mean? You never know. That's tough to look at. And with the Cleveland Browns, I'll tell you, They get a date with destiny with the Cincinnati Bengals at home, I believe. I believe it's in Cleveland. And what's our other AFC North game this week? The Baltimore Ravens are Monday night against the Buccaneers in Tampa. Both teams are 4-2. So that'll be fun to watch.
Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, go Baker. Well, you said the same thing last year when we were sitting there after the Buffalo game and they were playing the Eagles. And you're like, go Baker. So we could go root for him again. Well, Brian, thanks for joining me, my friend. It was fun, and hopefully we have a lot of positive things to discuss next week.
That would be nice. I would like to have another Victory Monday, especially if I have to stay up until midnight on Sunday night.
Yeah, we don't need this game going till 12:59 or whatever it needs to be. I'd be completely happy if Arthur Smith gets his way and runs the football, because running the football runs the clock, and it means I get out of there and get to bed a little earlier. So that'll do it for us, folks. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out our website, too, at steelcityunderground.com. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. As we always do to close out this show, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.